The silence before the voice feels alive, almost breathing. A low hum ripples through the background like static on an old analog TV. A faint echo of something broken but persistent. Then, slowly, the narrator speaks. His voice is calm, distant, like he's talking from the edge of sleep or from somewhere between dreams and waking life. He tells the listener to breathe in and imagine that the world they live in, the one filled with light, sound, and memory, might not be real. Every heartbeat, every reflection, every face we know could be just a rendering, a frame inside an endless loop. There's comfort in believing in order, in logic, in what we can touch. But sometimes logic itself begins to fracture. Sometimes the world stutters like a skipped frame in a video, and we catch a glimpse of the truth underneath. The imagery unfolds like a film reel unspooling in slow motion. We drift through a city at midnight. Empty streets glistening under amber lights, cars parked perfectly still, yet faintly vibrating as if the engine of the universe hasn't completely shut off. A man stands under a flickering street lamp. He doesn't move, doesn't blink. His shadow lags half a second behind him. A woman passes by. Her reflection in a shop window continues walking even after she's gone. Time stretches like warm glass, pliable and strange. Somewhere, a clock ticks backward. The hands move with deliberate, mechanical patience, undoing seconds that were just lived. The air is heavy, pregnant with that peculiar tension that exists right before something impossible happens. The narrator's voice deepens, guiding us deeper into this distortion. He speaks of the moments when our minds glitch, when we walk into a room and forget why, when we swear we've lived a scene before, when we see someone we recognize but can't place from where. Maybe those aren't coincidences. Maybe they're small tears in the fabric of whatever simulation holds this world together. He paints the idea not as science fiction, but as quiet horror, the fear that we might only exist as thoughts repeating themselves inside a machine that doesn't remember when to stop. There's a faint mechanical whir in the background now, almost imperceptible, like the sound of a hard drive spinning or the hum of distant fluorescent lights. The narrator asks softly, "Have you ever seen something that shouldn't exist?" The question lingers. He describes how people from every corner of the world have witnessed something that breaks reason. Objects disappearing and reappearing elsewhere, dead relatives seen walking in crowds, conversations that repeat word for word days apart. We imagine these moments playing out. A mother calling her child by name in a supermarket, only to find the same child standing behind her. A man seeing his car pass him on the highway. A woman receiving a text from herself, sent 3 days ago. Each image is layered with cinematic precision. The colors are muted, the light is too still, the air too dense. The sound design would make a listener's skin crawl. Faint whispers under the music, like corrupted data whispering in binary. The pacing is slow, hypnotic, like being lulled into a trance. Emotionally, it's not fear that takes hold first, but wonder. A sense that something vast and unknowable hides beneath the thin surface of what we call real. But as the seconds stretch on, wonder curdles into unease. Because if reality can bend, then so can identity. Who are we if our memories can be rewritten mid-thought? The narrator speaks softer now, almost like a confession. Maybe you've felt it too, that flicker in the air when the world pauses, when everything around you feels duplicated. The music dips to near silence. For a brief, delicate moment, all we hear is breath. Human, close, trembling slightly. Then the soundscape swells again. Faint static layered with the echo of footsteps on tile. The camera pans through an empty street. Lights flicker in a pattern too deliberate to be random, on, off, like the binary pulse of a living computer. Emotion builds like fog. We feel it tightening in the chest. That quiet panic that comes from realizing the ordinary is no longer safe. Every rule of reality feels fragile now. The narrator's tone grows heavier, his voice the only thread tethering the listener to sanity. He reminds them, these stories aren't just tales. They're real accounts, people who've seen the code beneath the surface. His tone carries no drama, only weary conviction, the sound of someone who has seen too much. As he speaks, the visuals fade to black, leaving only sound. A faint ticking echoes in the distance. Could be a clock, or a countdown. The hum of static swells, and for a fraction of a second, the sound distorts, like a signal losing coherence. Then a single chime rings out. Clean. Hollow. Inevitable. The narrator whispers, almost to himself, "Every glitch tells a story, and tonight, you'll hear 10 of them." The last sound is a heartbeat syncing with the static, slow, steady, fading into silence. The chime repeats once more, and the hum dissolves into a frozen whisper. The transition is seamless, the calm before the first true horror begins. Snow drifts through the night like slow-moving static, the kind that silences everything it touches. The streets are empty, lamplight stretching long and pale across the white-covered pavement. Aaron pulls his scarf tighter around his neck as he trudges forward, his breath forming small clouds that vanish into the cold. It's late, past midnight, and campus is miles behind him now. He likes walking home after studying at the library. It helps clear his head. But tonight, something feels different. The air hums. Not loudly, not enough to notice consciously, but it's there. A faint vibration under the skin, like the city itself is holding its breath. He turns down an old residential street lined with trees heavy with snow. That's when he sees her. At first, just a figure ahead of him. A woman walking slowly, the hem of her long red coat brushing against the snow. The color catches his eye instantly. It's the same shade his mother used to wear years ago before the accident. The same fabric texture, the same careful pace in her walk, as if she were counting each step. Aaron stops for a second, half smiling through the cold. He knows it's impossible, but for a moment he lets himself pretend. The streetlight above flickers once. Just a brief pulse. When it steadies again, the woman has turned the corner at the far end of the block. Aaron blinks, his breath quickening slightly. He feels something, curiosity or nostalgia, maybe both, and decides to follow. His boots crunch in the snow, each step echoing softly in the stillness. The night feels endless, the world reduced to white, black, and red. He turns the corner, and there she is again. Only this time, she's much farther ahead, as if she never stopped walking. The same red coat, the same tilt of the head, the same slow, measured pace. Aaron frowns. Maybe she took a shortcut. Maybe there's another street that loops around. He glances behind him. His own footprints are the only ones visible in the snow. He keeps walking, eyes fixed on the red figure. He calls out, voice trembling in the cold. "Ma'am? Are you okay?" No answer. She doesn't look back. He picks up his pace. The snow crunches faster beneath him now. His pulse begins to sync with it, rhythmic, sharp, anxious. When he reaches the next intersection, the woman turns the corner again. Aaron follows instantly, but as soon as he rounds it, his breath catches in his throat. The street is empty. Just rows of silent houses, their windows glowing faintly. No red coat, no footprints ahead. Only his. The sound of the wind fills the silence, whistling low and mournful between the houses. Aaron laughs nervously, shaking his head. Maybe he imagined it. Maybe it's just the cold playing tricks. He's about to turn back when something glimmers at the end of the street. A flash of red. The woman again, walking away. Exactly the same distance as before. Exactly the same pace. He freezes. His heart stutters in his chest. The hair on his neck rises. It's like the world just looped, frame for frame, step for step. The exact same motion. She turns her head slightly, just enough for him to see the edge of her profile under the streetlight. And that's when he stops breathing. It's her. His mother's face. The same lines, the same half-smile she used to give him when she thought he wasn't looking. His knees feel weak. The wind picks up, carrying with it the faintest sound. A whisper, almost too soft to catch. Sounds like his name. Aaron. He spins around, searching for the source. But there's no one else. Only the whispering wind, threading through the trees. When he turns back, she's gone again. His heartbeat pounds so loud it almost drowns the quiet hum that's returned to the air. He starts walking faster now, not toward her this time, but just forward. Anywhere that isn't here. Yet somehow, every turn leads him back to the same street. The same row of houses. The same faint red glimmer at the far end. The world feels slightly off balance now, like gravity itself is uncertain. Streetlights flicker out one by one behind him as he walks, until only the one above the woman remains. He takes out his phone, thinking maybe he can record this, prove it's real. But the moment he opens the camera app, the screen glitches. Static lines tear across it like lightning. For a split second, he sees something that shouldn't be there. The woman standing inches behind him, her head tilted to the side, eyes wide and dark. Then the screen freezes. His hand shakes violently. When he whirls around, the street is empty once more. Aaron starts to run. The camera slips from his glove and lands face up in the snow, the screen still recording faint static. His breath comes in ragged bursts. The sound of footsteps follows behind him. Not echoing his, not matching, but chasing. He looks back once and sees her again, closer this time. The coat doesn't move like fabric anymore. It shimmers faintly, almost digital, as though light itself is breaking around it. The world blurs at the edges, the snowflakes hanging midair, frozen in place like pixels paused in rendering. He stumbles into an alley that shouldn't exist, a narrow corridor between two houses that seem closer together than physics allows. The red figure stands at the far end, perfectly still. The alley is dim, walls closing in. Aaron can hear his own blood rushing in his ears. "Who are you?" he whispers. No answer, just a faint electric crackle. Then, in a voice that sounds like his mother's, but distorted, layered with static, she says, "You weren't supposed to see me again." The air bends. The streetlights flare white. Everything fades for a moment into blinding brightness. When the light dims, Aaron finds himself standing at the corner where he first saw her. The snow is undisturbed. His footprints are gone. The phone is gone. Only the sound of faint static lingers in the air, pulsing softly, rhythmically, like the city's hidden heartbeat. A soft female voice whispers his name one last time from somewhere unseen. The streetlights flicker once, twice, and the world holds its breath again. The red coat appears far ahead, walking the same path, the same turn of the head, endlessly repeating. The desert stretched out forever, flat and golden under a bruised sunset. Heat shimmered across the horizon, bending light like a dream half-remembered. Jamie and Claire had been driving for hours, the kind of endless drive where the world stops feeling real. Just road, sky, and the same lonely radio song looping every few minutes. They were halfway through Nevada, heading to visit Claire's brother. The GPS had lost signal miles ago, and their phones were useless now, flashing no service in quiet defiance. Then, out of the nothingness, they saw it. A small diner on the side of the road, the kind you only see in movies. Glowing neon sign buzzing faintly, the word ETS flickering with one letter dead. There were a few old cars parked outside, and a single yellow light swung lazily over the door. Claire smiled. "Finally," she said, rubbing her eyes. "I swear if I see one more cactus, I'm going to lose it." Jamie laughed softly, turning the wheel toward the gravel lot. As they pulled in, dust rose in a soft cloud, glowing pink in the last light of sunset. Inside, the diner was warm and alive with sound. A jukebox in the corner played some old 1950s song. A waitress with bright lipstick and kind eyes brought them coffee before they even asked. The air smelled of frying oil and sugar, comfort and nostalgia wrapped together. Everything about the place felt familiar. Too familiar. Jamie couldn't place it, but something about the color of the walls, the shape of the booths, even the hum of the lights felt like déjà vu. He brushed it off as road fatigue. Claire was already laughing with the waitress, telling her about their long drive. They ordered pancakes and eggs, though it was nearly evening. The food arrived hot, real, perfect. The pancakes steamed. The butter melted just right. They ate like they hadn't in days. There was something almost cinematic about it. Two travelers stopping at a forgotten diner in the middle of nowhere, framed by golden light and the sound of a jukebox lullaby. When they finished eating, Claire took a picture. She held up her phone, snapped a shot of the diner. Neon sign glowing, Jamie smiling half asleep across the table. She posted it later with a caption, "Found heaven in the desert." Then they paid, thanked the waitress, and stepped back outside into the cool night. The stars had begun to bloom above the horizon, endless and close. The diner lights flickered behind them as they got into their car. For the next few miles, they talked about how strange it was that such a nice place could exist in the middle of nowhere. They planned to stop there again on the way back. Jamie joked that maybe it was a mirage, and Claire rolled her eyes, resting her head against the window. The hum of the engine lulled them into quiet. Eventually, Claire fell asleep. Jamie drove on, headlights slicing through the dark, the road unrolling endlessly before him. An hour later, Claire woke up and decided to look at the photo she took. She scrolled through her camera roll until she found it, or what she thought was it. The photo showed Jamie, yes, sitting at the booth, smiling. But behind him, through the diner window, there was nothing. No neon sign, no glowing lights, no cars. Just an empty lot under a dark sky. The diner was gone. She frowned, thinking maybe it hadn't saved right. Maybe it was some glitch in the camera. But when she looked closer, she noticed something else. In the photo, Jamie's reflection in the window wasn't smiling. It was looking directly into the camera. She felt her chest tighten. "Jamie," she whispered, "look at this." He glanced at the screen for a second before the car swerved slightly. "What the hell?" He slowed down, pulling onto the shoulder. They sat in silence, staring at the image. The longer they looked, the less sense it made. The lighting in the picture didn't even match the time of day they were there. The shadows were all wrong. And behind the reflection, far in the darkness of the window, something that looked like a face was peering in, eyes wide, unblinking. They drove back. They didn't even talk about it. It just felt like something they had to do. The desert night was silent except for the hum of tires. After 20 minutes, the GPS kicked back in, as if it suddenly remembered where they were. The pin for the diner appeared, EATS Roadside Cafe, and the route guided them straight there. But when they arrived, the lot was empty. No neon sign, no light, no structure at all. Just sand and broken concrete. Jamie got out, kicking at the ground. A metal post stuck up from the dirt, rusted and half-buried. That was all that remained. Claire's heart pounded. "This was it," she said. "Right here. I swear to God, this was it." Jamie nodded slowly, his breath forming clouds in the cold desert air. "I know," he murmured. "I remember." He turned in a slow circle, scanning the horizon. But there was nothing, only stars and wind. He crouched down and brushed the dirt aside. Beneath the surface, half covered by dust, was something small and shiny. He picked it up. A coin. Freshly polished, engraved with a date, 1956. The air shifted. The wind stopped. For a heartbeat, the world felt too still. Claire glanced toward the distance and froze. The horizon was shimmering again. Shapes moving within the heat haze, flickering like light seen through water. Then, faintly, a sound. A woman's voice, soft and distant, calling from nowhere. "You forgot your check." Jamie dropped the coin. It hit the dirt with a sound that echoed far too loud for such a small thing. They turned and ran to the car. As they sped away, the radio burst into life. Static at first, then music. The same 1950s tune the jukebox had played. The signal was weak, fading in and out. In the spaces between the static, a voice whispered their names. Claire's hands trembled on her lap, and when she looked at her phone, the photo had changed again. The booth was empty now. They didn't stop driving until dawn broke over the desert. The world looked too bright, too normal. They told themselves it had to be some trick of memory, a gas station they imagined, something rational. But the next morning, when they tried to show the photo to a friend, it was gone. Not deleted, gone, as if it had never existed. No file name, no data, not even a trace in recently deleted. Years later, Claire would sometimes dream of that place. She'd wake up with the taste of coffee on her tongue, the smell of frying batter in the air, and the faint hum of a neon sign somewhere far behind her eyes. Sometimes, in those half-awake moments, she could swear she heard the jukebox again, that same gentle old song looping like a heartbeat. And somewhere out there, beyond the static of the world, a small neon sign still flickers faintly against the desert night. The word EATS, missing a letter, glowing for no one at all. Lena first noticed him on a rainy Thursday. She was standing on the subway platform, half asleep, the air heavy with the scent of wet metal and old concrete. Her headphones buzzed faintly with static before the music returned. She glanced up and saw him. A man in a dark gray coat, tall, thin, his face blank, his posture still. He wasn't staring exactly. He was looking in that way people do when they've already seen you before. Their eyes met for half a second before the train roared into the station, drowning the world in motion. When she looked again, he was gone. It would have meant nothing, just another stranger in a crowded city. But later that day, she saw him again, standing across the street from her office, under the same kind of gray umbrella she carried. He didn't move. He didn't seem to be waiting for anyone. When she crossed to look closer, a bus passed between them, and when it moved on, he'd vanished again. By the third time, it wasn't coincidence. It was pattern. He was at the grocery store that weekend, standing by the fruit section, pretending to read the label on a pineapple. Same coat, same distant expression. Lena's heart thudded painfully against her ribs. She tried to act casual, pretending to scroll through her phone, but she couldn't stop glancing up. Every time she did, he was looking directly at her. When she finally gathered enough courage to confront him, he turned and walked away before she could say a word. The following days blurred together. The man seemed to appear everywhere, in the reflection of the train window at the corner of her block, across from the coffee shop where she worked. Always close, never interacting. She told herself it had to be a coincidence, that maybe she was seeing a face that simply reminded her of someone else. But deep down, a cold understanding was spreading through her. This wasn't random. Nights grew worse. Sometimes, while brushing her teeth, she'd catch a glimpse of him in the mirror, standing behind her in the doorway, only to turn and find nothing there. The hum of her refrigerator became the sound of distant breathing. Sleep didn't help. Her dreams were filled with his silhouette, standing, waiting, watching. One night, after another long shift, Lena decided to test her reality. She went to the late train, platform empty except for her reflection in the glass. She stood in the middle, facing the tunnel, and whispered to herself, "If he's real, he'll show up." The sound of dripping water filled the space. Seconds ticked by. Then, behind her, she heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. She turned, and he was there, the man in the gray coat. He was closer than he'd ever been. Close enough for her to see the faint scar on his cheek, the unnatural stillness of his pupils. Her throat went dry. "Who are you?" she managed to say. The man tilted his head slightly, almost with pity. His voice, when it came, was soft and flat, like a recording. "We've had this conversation before." The words froze her. "What?" she whispered. "No, we haven't." The man's mouth didn't move again, but she heard the voice anyway, inside her head now. "You said that too." The station lights flickered once, twice. The sound of the tunnel deepened, a low, vibrating hum that made the air feel thick. Lena stumbled backward. When she blinked, the man was suddenly farther away, standing at the other end of the platform. Then, impossibly behind her reflection, she could see two of him now. One on the platform, one inside the glass, mimicking her every move half a second late. Her phone slipped from her hand, clattering to the ground. The moment it hit, the lights surged bright white, washing everything out. When the glare faded, the platform was empty again. The only sound was her breathing, sharp and uneven. She picked up her phone, hands trembling, and opened the camera app without thinking. The live preview glitched. For a heartbeat, the screen split in half. On one side, her reflection. On the other, the man's face, inches from hers, smiling faintly. The smile didn't belong to him. It was hers. The screen froze, distorted. Her reflection in the phone tilted its head independently, as if studying her. Then the app crashed. When she looked up, the subway lights flickered again, and in the corner of the glass, The faint outline of his gray coat lingered before fading entirely. After that night, reality began to unravel slowly. She'd wake up to find things slightly off. Objects moved, clocks running backward for a few seconds, her own handwriting changing styles mid-sentence. Once, she came home to find her front door slightly open, and inside, the faint smell of her own perfume. Her stomach twisted when she saw her coat on the rack. Wet, dripping, though she hadn't worn it. She touched it. It was warm. Her paranoia grew like a living thing. Every reflection became suspect. Every shadow felt a heartbeat too alive. The people around her started to glitch, eyes lagging in conversation, voices overlapping. The only constant was the man. Always near, always watching. Desperate, she went to the police, but as she tried to describe him, the officer frowned. "What's his name?" She shook her head. "I don't know. I just see him everywhere." The officer stared at her for a long moment before sighing. "Ma'am, you reported this same thing 3 days ago." Her mouth went dry. "No, I didn't." The officer slid a notepad across the table. On it was her own handwriting, shaky but familiar. "The man in the gray coat. Please make it stop." Lena left the station without another word. The city outside was suffocatingly quiet, the kind of silence that presses against your skull. Her phone buzzed with a new notification. A text from an unknown number. It read, "You said you'd stop looking for me." She dropped the phone. It landed screen up on the pavement, displaying the camera again. Her heart nearly stopped when she saw the live feed herself. Standing there, breathing heavily, and behind her, the man's reflection, hand on her shoulder. She spun around. The street was empty. She screamed, but no sound came out. The air itself felt wrong, like the world had missed a frame. The reflection in the phone smiled. Then, in the static that filled the screen, words began to type themselves out across the bottom. Iteration 437 complete. When she looked up again, the man was gone. Her reflection lingered for a heartbeat longer before catching up, her delayed movements sinking once more. The city resumed its sound. Faint cars, distant voices, as if nothing had happened. But that night, as she lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the sound of a train rumbled faintly beneath her apartment floor. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, "It's over." A pause, then a whisper, from somewhere very near, "We've had this conversation before." The alarm rang at 6:30 a.m. Just like always, Mr. Daniel Cole reached out, half awake, smacked the snooze button, and let out a groggy sigh. The sun leaked faintly through the curtains, washing the small apartment in soft gold. It was an ordinary Tuesday, or so he thought. He sat at the kitchen table, sipping lukewarm coffee, glancing over the newspaper headlines that already felt old. The date on the paper read February 12th. He barely noticed it. The school bell rang as usual. He greeted his students, all 30 of them, all restless and half-dreaming, tapping on their desks while he wrote the lesson plan on the board. Math period 3. Lunch, then grading. The day moved like a machine, clean, predictable, controlled. When the final bell rang, Daniel packed his briefcase, drove home, made dinner, watched TV, and fell asleep. The next morning, the alarm rang again at 6:30. He reached out, pressed snooze, stretched, yawned, and froze. The sunlight pouring through the window was exactly the same. The same shadow on the wall. The same bird call outside. Same rhythm. His body stiffened. Slowly, he turned toward the kitchen table. The newspaper lay there. February 12th. Again. He stared for a long time before shaking his head. Maybe he was remembering wrong. Maybe yesterday felt like today. He brushed it off, went to work. But as he entered the classroom, a chill prickled the back of his neck. Every student was sitting in the same position as before. Same scribbles on notebooks. Same broken pen on desk 4. He asked one of them to read the problem on the board. The boy repeated it word for word, identical to yesterday. Same hesitation in his tone. The rest of the day unfolded in eerie synchronization. At lunch, the same teacher spilled coffee in the same spot. After work, the same radio host made the same joke. By evening, Daniel sat in his car for an hour before driving home, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. He turned on the TV, same rerun. He checked the clock. 11:59 p.m. He whispered to himself, "Tomorrow will be different." But when the alarm rang again, the world reset. February 12th. Again. Days, if they could be called that, stacked like cards, identical. His students' faces began to blur into one another. He tried to test the loop. He stayed home one morning, refusing to go to work. When 10 a.m. struck, the phone rang. It was the school principal, voice calm and measured, saying, "Mr. Cole, you forgot to teach your class today." He hung up and stared at the wall. The next moment, the sunlight flickered. The paper on the table reappeared, untouched. He was back at 6:30 a.m. Again. He stopped eating after a few loops. It didn't matter, he never felt hungry. The food on the table always looked the same, no matter how much he threw away. Once, in a desperate attempt to break the pattern, he smashed the kitchen window, let in the cold morning air, and then blinked. The glass was whole again. The morning rewound. By the sixth loop, something changed. Small things at first. The chalkboard in his classroom was smeared, as if someone had erased it mid-lesson. The clocks ticked out of sync. His students' laughter sounded distorted, like a recording being played backward. The sunlight looked greenish. He wrote in his journal, February 12th, "The world's stuttering. I think I'm slipping behind the pattern." In the next loop, the hallway lights at school flickered violently. When he walked past a mirror in the teacher's lounge, his reflection lagged. He smiled to test it, and his reflection didn't. It just stared, unmoving. Panic clawed at him, raw and choking. He started talking to his students, trying to break the rhythm. "Do any of you remember yesterday?" he asked. They blinked at him in confusion. One girl raised her hand and said, "Yesterday was February 12th, Mr. Cole." He felt his stomach twist. "And today?" he asked. "It's February 12th, she replied again, with the same exact tone. He ran out of the classroom. The hallways stretched too long, fluorescent lights flickering like Morse code. The world had become elastic, stretching and snapping in strange intervals. Outside, the sky wasn't blue anymore. It was the color of static, shifting gray patterns that moved like smoke. The air smelled like ozone and burnt wires. He ran to his car, drove aimlessly for miles, but the road looped. Every sign read, Oak Ridge Elementary, 2 miles. No matter how far he went. Eventually, he stopped in the middle of the road and screamed until his throat tore. His voice echoed unnaturally, overlapping itself, like a sound file repeating slightly out of sync. The next time he woke up, he didn't move for a long time. He stared at the clock until the numbers glitched. 6:30 froze, flickered to 6:31, then back again. He got up, went to the mirror. The reflection stared back, but this time, it was smiling faintly. Not him. He staggered back, breathing hard. "Who are you?" he whispered. The reflection's lips moved half a second later. "Who are you?" It mouthed back. He smashed the mirror. It didn't shatter. It rippled like water, then solidified again, perfectly smooth. His reflection looked older now, tired. When he went to school that day, the building was empty. No students, no teachers, just his voice echoing down the hallway. Papers fluttered across the floor, and on each one, written in his own handwriting, was the same sentence repeated endlessly. "This day belongs to you." He tried to leave town, but every road led back to his apartment. The world beyond the horizon looked unfinished, like a painting someone had forgotten to complete. The air shimmered with digital haze. He realized then it wasn't just time looping. It was the program that ran his life glitching out. The following morning, when he woke again, he didn't move. He stared at the clock. 6:30. No sound. No sunlight. Everything was frozen, including him. The air vibrated faintly with static, like an old television warming up. Then the voice came. Calm. Synthetic. Genderless. Error detected. Simulation loop unstable. Rebuilding environment. He tried to scream, but his body wouldn't respond. The world around him pixelated, walls dissolving into fragments of color, the floor falling away into darkness. His breath caught as the room folded in on itself, collapsing like a crumpled photo. When the world reformed, he was sitting at his desk. February 12th. His students were back. The laughter returned, almost normal. But when he looked closely, every face was the same. Identical eyes, identical smiles. He stood motionless at the front of the classroom. One of the children raised a hand and asked, "Mr. Cole, what day is it?" Daniel smiled faintly. His voice cracked as he whispered, "It's February 12th. The class repeated it back in perfect unison, their voices merging into one. February 12th. February 12th. February 12th. The sound grew louder, distorted, until it was just static. That night, Daniel wrote one final note in his journal. There is no tomorrow, only the echo of a day that forgot how to end. Then he lay down, eyes open, as the alarm began to ring again, 6:30 a.m. And the sun rose green. The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days. The sky was a bruised gray, heavy with water, pressing down on the small town of Fairview like a lid trapping everything inside. The streets shimmered with reflections, puddles merging into slow rivers that carried cigarette butts and dead leaves along the curbs. Inside apartment 4B, a flickering lamp cast pale gold light on a cluttered desk. Evelyn sat there, staring at her laptop screen, its glow washing her face in ghostly white. She was exhausted, physically, mentally, emotionally. The emails had started 2 weeks ago. At first, they were spam-looking. Random strings of code, timestamps, coordinates. But then, one morning, she got one that froze her blood. It had a video attachment. The subject line read, "You shouldn't be here." When she clicked play, the screen filled with static, and then an image. It was her apartment, the exact angle of her desk, the same flickering lamp, only the footage wasn't live. It was dated exactly 1 hour in the future. At first, she laughed nervously, brushing it off as some hacker prank. But then, right on cue, her lamp flickered in the same rhythm, and outside, a car passed. The same blue sedan from the video. Her stomach dropped. She stared at the clock. 3:42 p.m. Just like in the video. She slammed the laptop shut. Now, 2 weeks later, her inbox was full of these messages, each one predicting something that would happen in her apartment. The sound of footsteps in the hallway, a knock at her door, a dropped glass shattering in the sink. Every prediction had come true. Every single one. Tonight, the subject line was different. It read, "Final transmission, do not ignore." Evelyn hovered her finger over the trackpad. Her heart thudded so hard she could hear it in her ears. She clicked. The video began like the others, static first, then her apartment. But this time, the lighting was strange. It wasn't her usual lamp glow. It was darker, colder. The timestamp in the corner read 11:57 p.m. 3 hours from now. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the screen slightly. In the video, she saw herself sitting at the desk, the same way she was now. Only she looked pale, terrified. Her eyes darted to the corner of the room, and her mouth moved as if whispering something. Evelyn turned up the volume. The sound was distorted, warped by the static, but one sentence cut through, repeated over and over, "He's behind me." Evelyn froze. Her eyes widened, and she felt the temperature in the room drop several degrees. She slowly turned her head toward the corner visible on her webcam, the same one from the video. Nothing there, just darkness, the hum of rain against glass. Her phone buzzed suddenly, making her jump. A new email. Same address. No subject. Just a single sentence. "Look again." Her throat tightened. She swallowed hard, her hand trembling as she turned her head once more toward the corner. Still nothing. She exhaled shakily. But when she glanced back at the laptop screen, her reflection in the dark glass of the monitor had changed. She was still sitting, but the shadow behind her was taller. She spun around so fast her chair tipped. The room was empty. She could hear only her own uneven breathing. "This isn't real," she whispered. "This isn't real." Another email arrived. "It's 11:57 now." Her pulse spiked. She checked the clock on her laptop. 11:56 p.m. The seconds ticked by with unbearable slowness. She stood in the middle of the room, every muscle tense, waiting for something, anything to happen. Then, faintly, came the sound. A slow, deliberate creak. The front door easing open. Her stomach flipped. The hallway outside was pitch black, yet she could hear soft footsteps approaching, wet, dragging slightly, as though whoever it was had walked through rain. She backed toward her desk, whispering, "This isn't real. It's not real." Over and over, her voice shaking. The footsteps stopped just beyond the corner of the room. Silence. Then her phone buzzed again. Another message. "Don't turn around this time." Her eyes filled with tears. Her whole body trembled as she stared at the email, her reflection distorted in the screen's glow. She could feel something behind her now, heatless, close enough that she could sense the weight of a breath that wasn't hers. She wanted to run, to scream, but fear locked her in place. Then, from behind, a whisper, "You weren't supposed to watch." She turned despite the warning and screamed. The camera feed on the laptop glitched violently. Frames skipped, colors bled together, the entire image tearing apart into fragments of light and shadow. For half a second, the video showed Evelyn's body frozen mid-scream, and another figure standing directly behind her. Its face was blurred, shifting between hundreds of expressions like a slideshow running too fast. Then the feed cut to black. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. At exactly 12:01 a.m., Evelyn's laptop powered off by itself. When it restarted minutes later, all her emails were gone. Every file wiped. Only one new folder remained on the desktop/future records. Inside was a single video file. The thumbnail showed her apartment again. Timestamp, February 17th, 11:57 p.m. The next night, she didn't sleep. She sat in the dark, watching the rain trace thin lines down the glass, whispering to herself, "Don't open it, don't open it." But the thought gnawed at her brain like a hook. What if she could stop it this time? The next night, when the clock struck 11:56, she found herself opening the folder again. Her hand moved before her mind caught up. The mouse hovered over the file. Click. The video loaded. The timestamp rolled forward. 11:57. The camera focused on her apartment, same angle, same room. Only this time, there was no Evelyn in the frame. The room was empty, silent. Then, slowly, the camera began to pan toward the window. The rain outside shimmered oddly, pixels bleeding through the raindrops. And then, in the reflection of the glass, a shape appeared. A faint, blurred silhouette standing behind the camera. Watching, breathing. Her real window rattled at that same moment. Evelyn jumped to her feet, the chair toppling behind her. She rushed to the window and froze. Outside, through the rain and darkness, she saw a figure in the exact same spot as the reflection. Standing in the street, looking up directly at her. It wasn't a person. Not exactly. Its face flickered like a broken video frame, glitching between dozens of versions of itself. Her laptop screen turned white. The light filled the room like a flare. The speakers crackled. And through the static, a distorted voice whispered, "You are the file now." The screen cut to black. When Evelyn's neighbor knocked on her door the next morning, no one answered. The lights were still on. The coffee on the counter was still warm. Her laptop sat open, showing the folder Future Records again, now containing 2 videos. The latest one was timestamped February 18th, 11:57 p.m. When the police opened it later, the footage showed the same apartment. Only this time, Evelyn was sitting at her desk again, smiling faintly, typing something. At the bottom of the video window, the live timestamp flickered, constantly resetting itself to 11:57 p.m. Over and over. It never reached 11:58. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, an ocean of dust and heat shimmering beneath a white sun that looked too close to the earth. Miles of cracked, sunburnt ground sprawled out in waves, the kind of landscape that swallowed sound and memory. Somewhere far from any road or town, a car sat abandoned on the horizon, its windows shattered, metal shell half buried in sand. Inside, a single man slept slumped over the wheel. His name was Marcus Hale, 36, a long-haul trucker who'd spent more of his life behind the wheel than in his own home. He'd been driving for nearly 20 hours when he saw it. A flash of light that split the highway open like a wound. It wasn't lightning. It wasn't even natural. It had pulsed once, twice, and then everything had gone silent. The next thing he remembered was waking up here, alone, in a car that wasn't his. When he stepped outside, the heat bit at him instantly. The air shimmered, almost alive, bending the horizon like a mirage. He called out, his voice lost in the wind. No response. The world felt empty. No sound of insects, no rustle of air. Just stillness, like the pause between heartbeats. He started walking, his boots sinking slightly into the loose sand. Time moved strangely. The sun hung overhead but never shifted, as though it were trapped in place. After what felt like hours, he spotted something in the distance. A small diner, pale and flickering like heat distortion. He blinked several times, convinced it was a trick of the light. But as he got closer, the structure solidified. A retro-style building straight out of the 1950s, chrome edges gleaming faintly. The neon sign above the door buzzed weakly, Sunset Diner. Marcus pushed the door open. A small bell jingled overhead, the sound echoing far too long. Inside, everything was spotless, chrome booths, red vinyl seats, a jukebox humming softly in the corner. The air smelled faintly of coffee and rain, though the sky outside was bone dry. A waitress appeared from behind the counter. Her smile was fixed, almost too still, her name tag reading Lucy. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice calm, mechanical almost. Marcus hesitated. Sure." She poured from a pot that was already steaming, though he hadn't seen her touch the machine. The liquid poured perfectly, no spill, no steam rising now. He sat at the counter, fingers tapping nervously. "Where am I?" he asked. Lucy didn't answer right away. She just tilted her head, smile unwavering. "You're here," she said finally, as if that explained everything. Marcus frowned. "Right? But where is here? There's nothing for miles out there." "My truck is gone," she interrupted gently. "They always are." He froze. "What do you mean, they?" Her eyes flicked toward the window. "It'll make sense soon." Before he could respond, the jukebox clicked, and a soft old melody began to play. Blue Moon, the static-filled version. The lights above flickered once. Marcus turned toward the window and saw something that made his skin crawl. The desert outside wasn't still anymore. It was moving. Waves of sand rippled unnaturally, shapes shifting just beneath the surface, like something alive was crawling underneath. He stood abruptly. "What the hell is that?" Lucy kept smiling. "Don't look too long. It notices when you do." His breath quickened. "It." She leaned in close, whispering like she was afraid of being overheard. "You shouldn't have followed the light." Marcus stepped back, his heartbeat thundering in his chest. "I didn't follow anything. It just happened." She gave him a strange, pitying look. "They always say that." Suddenly, the diner lights flickered again. Longer this time. When they steadied, Lucy was gone. The counter was empty. The jukebox kept playing the same 10 seconds of the song on repeat. He spun around, calling her name. The bell above the door jingled softly, though no one had entered. Outside, the horizon had changed. The sun was no longer in the sky. It was underneath it, glowing faintly beneath the sand like a buried furnace. The diner windows began to shake as a low hum filled the air. Marcus's coffee cup vibrated on the counter, the liquid inside rippling rhythmically, like responding to a pulse. He ran outside. The heat struck him like a physical force. The ground beneath his boots felt unstable, flexing slightly as if it were breathing. The diner behind him looked distorted now, its sign flickering between different names. Sunset, Sundown, Subset. He turned to run toward the car, but it wasn't there. Instead, the desert stretched endlessly in all directions again. No footprints behind him, no sky above, just a flat, white void with faint static patterns drifting like clouds. Okay, he muttered to himself, breathing fast. This is a dream. It's just a dream. Then came the voice. Low, calm, familiar. You're not supposed to be here, Marcus. He turned slowly. His mouth went dry. Standing a few yards away was himself. Same face, same posture, same clothes, but something was wrong with the eyes. They didn't blink. The skin around them flickered faintly, edges warping like bad film. Who? What are you? Marcus whispered. His double tilted his head slightly. I'm the one who stayed on the road. The ground pulsed again. The humming grew louder, deeper, until it vibrated in Marcus's bones. His double stepped closer, the sand not even shifting beneath his boots. You weren't supposed to stop, the other Marcus said softly. The light was the signal, the reset point. Marcus shook his head. Reset what? The double smiled faintly. The world. The ground cracked beneath them. Thin lines of white light spilled from the fissures, crawling like veins across the desert. The air shimmered, and Marcus felt his skin prickle as the static from the horizon closed in. The hum became a voice, not words, but emotion. Cold, ancient, watching. His double stepped even closer, eyes now filled with static. You saw behind it, he whispered, and now it has to rebuild you. Before Marcus could react, the ground opened. The sand dropped away like liquid, revealing a blinding white void beneath. His double didn't move. He just stood there watching as Marcus fell down through layers of broken light, past images of himself driving, sleeping, walking. Each fragment replayed moments of his life like shattered mirrors looping endlessly. He landed hard on solid ground. The sound of the diner bell echoed again. Faint, distant. When he opened his eyes, he was back in the driver's seat of his truck. The highway stretched ahead. The sky was dark now, the stars scattered above. His dashboard clock read 2:14 a.m. Marcus gasped, grabbing the steering wheel. The hum was gone. The desert was still. He took a deep, shaky breath and started the engine. The radio came to life with a burst of static before settling on a faint, slow song, Blue Moon. He stared at the radio, frozen. Then, in the reflection of the windshield, just for a split second, he saw his own face staring back. Only it wasn't his. The eyes were hollow, flickering faintly with static, and the mouth was whispering something he couldn't hear. The headlights flickered once. The desert rippled. Marcus hit the gas. He didn't look back. Hours later, a patrol officer found the truck idling on the side of the road, empty. The engine was still running. The radio still played Blue Moon on loop, and in the passenger seat lay a coffee cup, full, still steaming. The highway cameras captured the moment it happened. At exactly 2:15 a.m., Marcus Hale's truck blinked. One frame visible, the next completely gone. No skid marks, no trace, just a faint electrical hum that lingered for nearly an hour before fading into silence. And at 2:16 a.m., far out in the desert, a neon sign flickered to life in the darkness. Sunset Diner, open 24 hours. Night had fallen over the city like a black tide. The streets were slick with rain, and the reflections of neon signs bled across the asphalt like liquid color. Somewhere above the constant hum of traffic, a single apartment light flickered erratically in a tall, faceless building. Inside that apartment, Nadia Winters sat on the floor, surrounded by shards of glass and the cold glow of a dozen screens. Every monitor, every phone, every tablet in the room was on, and every one of them showed her own face. Not reflections, not camera feeds, but recordings, angles, and moments she didn't remember being filmed in. Her typing at her desk, her cooking dinner, her sleeping, all captured from impossible perspectives, overhead, corner of the room, from behind the closet door. She had found the first video by accident 3 nights ago. It had been in her downloads folder, labeled capture_001. She assumed it was a glitch, maybe from one of the security cams in her apartment complex. But when she pressed play, the footage showed her sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. The timestamp was correct. The view, however, was from behind her. She hadn't owned any cameras. Each night since, another video appeared. One more file. Capture_002, capture_003. And every night, the angle got closer. By the time she reached capture_007, the camera was no more than a few feet from her sleeping face. The breathing in the audio track didn't match hers. Now, she sat on the floor, trembling, surrounded by them all. Each screen flickered slightly, playing its own version of her life, out of sync. Sometimes her image blinked when she didn't. Sometimes her recorded self looked straight at the camera as though it knew she was watching. The air in the room felt heavy, electric. The faint buzz of the screens filled her head like a migraine. Rain tapped softly on the windows. Outside, thunder rolled, low and far away. She whispered to herself, "This isn't happening." But even her voice sounded foreign, slightly delayed, as if reality itself were buffering. Her phone vibrated. A message. No contact name, no number. Just one line. "Stop watching yourself." Her stomach twisted. She glanced around, pulse hammering in her throat. "Who is this?" She typed back, hands shaking. The reply came instantly. "The more you look, the more it learns." She dropped the phone. Every screen in the room went black at once. The silence was absolute. Then, one by one, they flickered back to life, except now the footage was live. Every screen showed her current position on the floor. But there was something off about the angles. Some of them showed her from viewpoints that didn't exist in her apartment. One from directly above her, another from just behind her shoulder. Her breath caught. "No, no, no," she whispered. The feed from behind her shoulder trembled slightly, as if whoever or whatever held the camera had just shifted its weight. She turned around. Nothing there. Lightning flashed outside. In that brief burst of light, she caught movement. A figure standing at the far end of the room, near the hall. Just a silhouette, tall, still, watching. When the lightning faded, it was gone. Her phone buzzed again. "Don't move." Her throat tightened. She didn't move. Her eyes darted toward the largest screen. The live feed showed the same room. Only, in the footage, the figure was still there, closer now. Standing behind her. Nadia's pulse spiked. She turned, heart hammering in her chest. The room was empty again. But she could feel it now. The pressure in the air, like the atmosphere itself, was thickening, folding inward. Her reflection appeared faintly in the nearest monitor, distorted by static. The image smiled. She didn't. Every light in the apartment flickered. The power cut for a split second, plunging her into darkness. When the screens returned, every feed showed the same thing. Her standing in the center of the room, staring directly into the camera. But she wasn't standing. She looked down at her hands, trembling, to remind herself she was still sitting on the floor. Her voice came out as a rasp. "Stop this." Her image on the screens tilted its head, perfectly synchronized across every display. Then, one by one, each screen began displaying text in the same glitching white letters. "Do you know which one is you?" The words repeated, multiplying until the screens were covered in them. Her vision blurred. The air seemed to warp, colors smearing at the edges. A low hum started somewhere beneath the floorboards, growing louder and deeper until it resonated through her bones. Nadia scrambled for the door. It wouldn't open. The knob turned, but nothing moved. The hum crescendoed into static, hundreds of voices whispering just below hearing. She turned back to the screens, and for the first time, she saw something besides herself. In one feed, just behind her recorded image, a face pressed into view. Pale, stretched too long, its eyes reflecting faint light like animal lenses. It smiled, a slow, impossible movement that made her blood run cold. The text on the screens changed again. "We watched you become US." Her phone buzzed a final time. One last message. "Look away or join the file." Tears streaked her face. She closed her eyes, breathing fast, whispering, "Wake up, please wake up." When she opened them again, the room was dark. The monitors were off. Her phone screen was blank. She sat in silence, gasping. Rain still whispered against the glass. She dared to hope it was over. Then, faintly, one screen flickered to life. It showed her again, sitting exactly where she was. But this time, the camera angle was outside the window, looking in. The glass was fogged, streaked with rain, but she could see the faint outline of a figure standing there. Slowly, the image on the screen leaned closer to the window. A hand pressed against the glass from the other side, long fingers bending the light like a reflection out of sync. Her actual window shuddered slightly, as though something had brushed it. The video glitched. The image of her inside the room began to distort, stretching into static lines that folded in on themselves. Then the power cut again. The next morning, the building's superintendent found Nadia's apartment door open. The lights were out. The floor was covered in dust, as if no one had walked there for years. But her laptop was still on, its screen faintly glowing. On it played a single video file, capture_999. The footage showed an empty apartment, shot from outside the window, rain falling softly in the background. Then, for a brief moment, something leaned into frame. Pale face, watching, smiling. The video ended abruptly. The file rewound itself and started again. And outside, on the rainy glass of the apartment window, a handprint slowly faded into view from the other side, fresh. It began as nothing more than a chill in the air, the kind that creeps in unnoticed until it wraps itself around your bones. The time was just past 3 a.m., and Darren, a 27-year-old long-haul truck driver, was halfway through a night route that took him through the Nevada desert. The world around him was nothing but darkness, endless asphalt under an ocean of stars. The radio had gone silent hours ago, leaving only the sound of the engine and the low hum of the tires cutting through the night. He'd driven this route dozens of times before, but tonight the world felt off. The GPS kept flickering, freezing on the same stretch of road again and again even as the miles rolled by. The same highway sign appeared twice, Exit 47, Red Mesa, though he hadn't seen another exit for nearly 50 miles. And then there was the car. A few minutes earlier, a pair of headlights had appeared in his rearview mirror. At first, he didn't think much of it, just another late-night traveler. But when he looked again after 20 minutes, the car was still there, exactly the same distance behind him. Not closer, not farther, just following, its high beam steady and unblinking. He tapped his brakes once, a driver's way of signaling annoyance. The car didn't react. Darren frowned, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. "All right, pal," he muttered under his breath. "Either pass or back off." He pressed harder on the gas. The truck roared, engine straining as the speedometer climbed past 85. The headlights followed, not swerving, not changing lanes, just keeping perfect pace. The desert stretched endlessly ahead, a flat, silver horizon under the pale moonlight. There were no towns, no buildings, nothing but the thin ribbon of highway slicing through black emptiness. The longer he drove, the stranger the landscape became. The stars overhead seemed brighter, but they didn't look right. Their constellations were wrong, slightly rearranged, as if someone had scattered them by hand. Then, the road itself began to twist subtly, though the map showed it as straight. His headlights caught the faint shimmer of something on the horizon. Mist, maybe, though there was no humidity here. The air grew colder, unnaturally so, and a faint electrical hum began to fill the cab. Darren checked his GPS again. It read the same thing it had for the last hour. Recalculating. Recalculating. He turned down the radio volume, listening. That's when he heard it, the sound of his own truck, echoing. Not the normal hum or rattle of the engine, but an exact duplicate sound, just slightly delayed, as if another identical truck were driving just behind him, mimicking every move. His stomach turned. He flicked his headlights to high beam, eyes squinting through the windshield. For a split second, he saw something that made his skin crawl, 2 sets of taillights ahead of him. 2 trucks, both identical to his, same color, same license number on the back. He blinked. The road was empty again. Sweat beaded on his forehead. "You're just tired," he whispered to himself, forcing a laugh that didn't sound like his own. Too much coffee, too many hours. But deep down, he knew something was wrong. The desert had gone completely silent. No wind, no insects, not even the faint static hum of the world. He looked again in the mirror. The car was still there. Only now its headlights seemed higher, taller, as if whatever was following him had grown. He squinted, trying to make out the shape behind the glare. For a split second, he could have sworn he saw his own truck behind him. Same cab, same cargo load, same bumper sticker peeling in the corner. He let out a shaky breath. That's impossible. He gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles white. The air inside the cab grew thick, heavy, pressing on his lungs. The dashboard lights flickered, then began to dim, one by one. The GPS froze entirely, displaying just one word now, error, and then static. Not from the radio, but from everywhere. The sound filled the cabin like white noise, vibrating through his teeth. The lights outside flickered, and in that instant he saw it, his own reflection in the windshield, smiling. But he wasn't smiling. His reflection's eyes blinked out of sync with his own. The grin stretched wider, too wide. His breath hitched as the reflection leaned forward, closer to the glass, as if something were behind it, pushing to break through. Darren slammed the brakes. The truck screeched, tires screaming across asphalt as the world outside seemed to ripple like heat waves. The headlights behind him vanished instantly. He sat there for a moment, chest heaving, surrounded by darkness. The desert was completely still. He reached for his flashlight, stepping down from the cab. The ground beneath his boots crunched softly. He shined the light down the highway, empty. The silence was suffocating. He walked around to the back of the truck, checking the cargo doors. They were closed tight, but his light flickered across something on the metal surface, handprints. Dozens of them. Smudged, oily, pressed flat against the steel, as if someone, or many someones, had been trying to claw their way in. His breath quickened. He turned toward the horizon, trying to steady himself, but froze. There, in the distance, was another truck, identical to his. Same cargo, same company logo, same mud streaks along the side. His headlights were off. Yet, somehow it was moving slowly, smoothly, directly toward him, though its wheels didn't turn. He stumbled backward, scrambling into his cab. He threw the truck into gear and sped off, heart hammering in his chest. The world outside began to warp again. The same highway sign flashed past, Exit 47, Red Mesa. Then, 15 minutes later, again. His breathing grew ragged. He checked his odometer. He'd been driving for hours, but it hadn't moved. It was stuck on 1,147 miles. When he looked up again, his stomach dropped. The same truck, his truck, was now ahead of him, driving perfectly in sync with his every move. Same turn of the wheel, same speed. He leaned forward, squinting into the cab of the other truck. And there, sitting in the driver's seat, was him. The other Darren turned his head slowly, eyes locking on his through the windshield. That same unnatural smile stretched across its face. Then, the headlights behind Darren's truck flared on again. The reflection was back. He was trapped. The desert began to dissolve into mist, the sky above him flickering like a glitching video file. The stars blinked in and out of existence, rearranging faster and faster until the horizon folded in on itself. The road split into two, then infinite copies, all leading nowhere. The last thing Darren remembered was gripping the wheel and whispering, "Please, let me wake up." When morning came, state troopers found an abandoned truck near Exit 47. The engine was still running, headlights on, doors open. The driver's seat was empty, though the seatbelt was buckled tight, stretched as if someone invisible still sat there. On the dashboard, a phone was recording. The video showed the driver's perspective. Miles of empty desert road, looping endlessly. And faintly, just before the feed cut to static, a reflection in the windshield smiled back. In a dimly lit subway tunnel, a maintenance worker named Eli caught sight of his reflection in the dark window of a parked train. Only it wasn't following him. It lingered, staring back after he'd turned away. When he leaned closer, his reflection smiled, though his own face remained still. The lights above flickered, and the glass rippled like water. From the other side, his reflection raised its hand and pressed it against the glass. Eli froze as a cold, unseen grip wrapped around his wrist from behind. The reflection whispered, "Your turn," before the lights went out. The rain fell softly against the empty parking lot as the narrator's voice faded into the dark. The final story lingered in the air like smoke, heavy and haunting. Outside, the world was quiet, but the feeling wasn't peace. It was unease, that strange awareness that maybe, just maybe, not everything around us is what it seems. The idea that reality could bend, fracture, or replay itself in loops too perfect to notice. Somewhere a phone buzzed. Somewhere a reflection blinked. Somewhere someone whispered your name, but there was no one there. The camera slowly zoomed out, the faint hum of electricity in the background rising like a heartbeat. Lights flickered in distant windows as if the stories had awakened something. The world glitched for a fraction of a second, just enough to make viewers question whether they truly saw it. The rain stopped. The screen dimmed to black. A faint reflection lingered in the darkness for a breath too long, smiling where no one should be. Then silence. The outro music swelled softly, dreamlike, as the narrator whispered the final line, almost as a warning. If you ever notice the world skipping a beat, don't look too close. The rain had stopped by dawn, leaving the world eerily still. Streetlights blinked lazily over empty roads, their glow dissolving into a gray haze. Somewhere far off, a dog barked once, then fell silent. In an abandoned stretch of suburbia, a phone began to ring inside an empty house. The sound echoed through the quiet halls, bouncing off peeling wallpaper and dust-choked air. On the kitchen table, the screen lit up, an incoming call from an unknown number. After a few rings, it stopped. Then the voicemail tone clicked on. A distorted voice whispered faintly through the static, "If you're hearing this, it's already watching." The message repeated, slower each time, the voice breaking apart until it was nothing but crackling noise. The phone vibrated once more. Its screen flickered, and for just an instant, a face appeared. Unfocused, pale, too close to the camera. Then the image distorted into black lines, the device powering off completely. Outside, the fog thickened again, swallowing the house from view. Only the faint hum of electricity remained, lingering in the air like a pulse. And if anyone had been close enough to listen, they might have heard it, a whisper soft but certain. "The glitch is never over."